surprised at how fast you love video. And I know you're a text person. And thank you, I got an answer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to all of you joining us here in the chapel and on YouTube. We're especially glad to have those of you who may be with us for the first time today, and hope to see you again soon. Before I say anything else, please silence your phones, because you don't want to be that one. My name is Katie Norris-Paries. I am the board president here at Eastrose, and I am the worship leader for today. And our speaker is our own Reverend Robin Zucker, and she will be speaking about in honor of Black History Month. Eastrose Fellowship sits on the occupied territory of the Clackamas Chinook people, who were forcibly displaced from this land to the Grand Ronde Reservation in 1855. We acknowledge the sacrifices endured by the ancestors of this land, and that our presence here today is only possible because of the injustices committed against them. We recognize the inherent sovereignty of the Chinook Nation and confederated tribes of Grand Ronde, who carry on the traditions, history, and legacy held by their ancestors from time immemorial to this day. We seek meaningful relationships with these communities that foster repair. All right, let's take a moment to greet each other here today, and both in the chapel and online. So please stand and face the cameras in the back by the clock and wave hello to our friends, and then turn to your neighbor and say hello. All right, lots of warm hellos. We are having a potluck this afternoon after service, so you can continue your conversations there. All right, we're going to start with a responsive call to worship, and I will be reading the yellow. All right. In a world where some of us are targeted for struggle and brutality, where others of us benefit and flourish, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. In a world where powerful people of ill will and indifference make us fearful for our safety and our futures, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. In the excruciating space that lives between seeing and naming and hearing and changing, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. Make a picture in your mind of someone you aren't very happy with right now. Look at their face, and in your mind, pray. All of us need all of us to make it. Unitarian Universalists believe that all of us need all of us to make it. This is why we are in solidarity with the movement for Black lives today and every day. All of us need all of us to make it. Each day provides us with an opportunity to love again, to hurt again, to embrace joy, to experience unease, to discover the tragic. Each day provides us with the opportunity to live.
Thank you, Katie. Welcome, everyone. I'm the Reverend Robin Zucker. I see a lot of new faces today, and we're very happy you're with us. My opening words today is a poem called Gather the Bones. It's by our UUA president, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. They are the second African-American president we've had in the Unitarian Universalist Association. And they write, "What would it mean to sanctify you, to dredge your fractured body from the embrace of two hard seas, to gather the bones, child, the bones? Gather the bones, child, for in them lies history, voices long tortured, nameless, and forgotten, their ancestral strength beyond measure. Search for powdered traces, child, left swirling in deep waters, identities patterned like the spore print of a mushroom, like the fungal flower traces of the dead. Speak the truth, child. Our people came to rest on the bottoms of oceans, an amassed revolution of skeletal fragments. Where would your bones lie, dragged, bleeding, and betrayed, chained to the bottom of ships, plotting freedom through the blessed dark watery deep? Could you find them today? Or would you too whisper words on the winds, calling to yourself in renewed flesh on strange lands with peculiar words, calling to collect the tiniest bones? To gather fragments littering beaches of too expensive resorts where those same sailors now sun themselves, towels spread on crumbled bodies to darken their own skin? Do you recognize yourself walking the sands at sunset? Does your soul cry out on the winds to gather the bones, child? Gather the bones. I invite you now to rise as you are able to sing our first hymn. It's number 1007 in the teal hymnal. You'll notice we have two hymnals, a little one and a big one, but the words will also be on the screen. There's a river flowing in my soul.
young at heart, welcome to come on.
It's easier when you're sitting up. Good morning. Today's story is called The Year We Learned to Fly by Jacqueline Woodson, with pictures by Rafael Lopez. As we honor Black History Month, I'd like to share with you the author's own words about why she wrote this story. She says, "The first time I read The People Could Fly, American Black Folktale, brilliant Virginia Hamilton, I realized that through her beautiful story, I was learning to fly. Not with wings, but with words. Her book is the story of how enslaved people escaped their hard lives by lifting up and flying away home. As a kid, I always wondered how people were able to survive through the horrors of enslavement, but they did, and they passed down their stories and their fables and their memories to the young people coming along after them, and these stories gave us wings. Virginia Hamilton gave me and so many other writers storytelling wings, and with these wings, I have been able to fly past even the hardest of times into the world of my stories. Sometimes the first step toward change is closing our eyes, taking a breath, and imagining a different way." That was the year we learned to fly. That was the spring when the rain seemed like it would never stop, and the thunder boomed so hard we weren't allowed to go outside. "Use those beautiful and brilliant minds of yours," my grandmother said. "Lift your arms, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and believe in a thing. Somebody, somewhere, at some point, was just as bored as you are now." So my brother and I closed our eyes, and for a few minutes that first day, we weren't stuck in our apartment anymore. We were flying over the city we'd known our whole lives, but it was suddenly different, exploding with every kind of flower we had ever dreamed of growing. That was the summer we learned to fly, when my brother and I couldn't stop fussing with each other over whose turn it was to wash the windows, to feed the dog, to clean the kitchen. We fought and frowned and made silent promises to never speak to each other ever again. My grandmother said, "Lift your arms, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and stop being so mean about everything. Somebody, somewhere, at some point, was just as mad as you are now." So we did, and the soft wind took us out over the city and past the windows of kids who hadn't yet learned to fly, my brother and I. We reached for each other's hand, flying and diving and laughing and leaving all of our mad far behind us. That was the autumn our rooms felt too big and lonely with only us in them and the darkness coming on so fast. But while we hugged ourselves against the too quiet of it all, we remembered that we didn't have to be stuck anywhere anymore. My grandmother had learned to fly from the people who came before. They were aunts and uncles and cousins who were brought here on huge ships, their wrists and ankles cuffed in iron. But, my grandmother said, nobody can ever cuff your beautiful and brilliant mind. So our people learned to fly, she said. They dreamed a thing and made it happen, closed their eyes and flew away home. Lift your arms, my grandmother said. Close your eyes and remember somebody somewhere at some point had to figure out they could fly. That was the winter we moved away from the building and the block and the friends we had always known, to a street where the kids looked at us funny and didn't even answer when we asked them if they wanted to play. It's okay, I said to my brother. Somebody somewhere at some point had to figure out they were ready for any new thing coming their way. So like the people who came before us, we lifted our arms even higher, closed our eyes even tighter, breathed in even deeper, and flew the way we'd always known how to, free as the aunties and uncles and cousins who had come before us, free as our own beautiful and brilliant minds. For a long time, the kids on the ground watched us. Then one by one, they lifted their arms. One by one, they too learned to fly. As Jacqueline Woodson said, sometimes the first step toward change is closing our eyes, taking a breath, and imagining a different way. May her words nurture your own inner strength and resilience. Now we'll say goodbye to Reverend Robin and the adults and continue on to our classroom. If the adults along the center aisle will form a bridge, we'll sing the children out. Thank you.
We'll now enter into some of the quiet time we have in the service, and I invite you to put your feet on the floor and uncross your arms, and if you're holding a book, to put it down. and to maybe rest your hands in your lap if that's comfortable for you. Sort of open yourself, close your eyes, and take one big inhale and exhale to start. You take your breath everywhere with you. It's amazing how little we actually breathe. But just intentional breathing can be incredible first aid for the body, the mind, and the spirit. So we're going to breathe intentionally. 4 beats in slowly through your nose, 5 or 6 beats out slowly through your mouth in a steady stream, creating spaciousness from the crown of your head down to the soles of your feet that are touching the ground. And just breathe. Feel where it takes you, how it helps you, how it might heal you. Just breathe. 4 in through your nose, 5 or 6 out through your mouth, and we'll just breathe together. Soften your shoulders and your face and anywhere else in your body that feel tight and can use this spaciousness. While you continue your intentional breathing, I offer these words. Breathe for yourself, for each other. Let us breathe in when others cannot, when we can do nothing else. Let us stretch ourselves open to embrace our friends. Extend our bodies and breath outward to anyone willing to meet us, and even those we think may not be willing to meet us. Let us hold each other for this moment. Let us breathe together in this moment for this blink of human existence we share together. Slowly come out of your breathing and then take one big inhale and exhale to just sort of clear, come back into this space. Our quiet song is number 95 in the gray hymnal, but the words will be on the screen. There is more love somewhere. We'll remain seated.
Somewhere
I'm going to read a couple of poems by Phillis Wheatley, published in 1773. A Hymn to the Evening. Soon as the sun forsook the eastern main, the pealing thunder shook the heavenly plain. Majestic grandeur from the zephyr's wing exhales the incense of the blooming spring. Soft purls the streams, the birds renew their notes, and through the air their mingled music floats. Through all the heavens and beauteous dyes are spread, but the west glories in the deepest red. So may our breasts with every virtue glow, the living temples of our God below, filled with the praise of him who gives the light and draws the sable curtains of the night. Let placid slumber soothe each weary mind, at morn to wake more heavenly, more refined. So shall the labors of the day begin, more pure, more guarded from the snares of sin. Night's leaden scepter seals my drowsy eyes, then cease my song till fair aurora rise. And this writing is on being brought from Africa to America. 'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there's a God, that there's a Savior too, once I redemption neither sought nor knew. Some view our sable race with scornful eye. Their color is a diabolic dye. Remember, Christians, Negroes, black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train.
In many ways, the story of Phillis Wheatley, or Phillis Wheatley Peters, that was her name when she died, is a familiar one. And then again, it's exceptional enough for her poetry to be included in prominent anthologies and for her likeness to hang in the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. Common enough for her to have gained freedom only to die in poverty. Extraordinary enough that she once corresponded with George Washington, who was a fan. As we embark on Black History Month, the legacy and poetry of Phillis Wheatley offers many pathways to the story of an enslaved girl who was a gifted poet and the tragedies that both preceded and followed her literary triumph. Debates over how Wheatley's story should be told, explicitly whether it was whitewashed in a memoir by Margaretta Odell, an alleged Wheatley descendant, also offers an important window into the question of who tells and who will tell the stories of folk like Phillis Wheatley, especially in the divisive and chilling climate of spreading censorship of the histories, viewpoints, and experiences of Black Americans. Phillis Wheatley never recorded her own account of her life. It's been pieced together by historians and surviving records, as Wheatley had an unusually public life for an enslaved person in the 1700s. This slender and frail African girl arrived in Boston on July 11th, 1761, aboard the Phillis, a slave ship that was returning from Senegal, Sierra Leone, and the Isle of Loss off the coast of Guinea. Most likely, she was a native Wolof speaker from the Senegambian coast, and she arrived completely naked, except for a kilt made from a quantity of a dirty carpet. She had lost a front tooth, so it was believed she was around 7 or 8 years old. Susanna Wheatley, the wife of a prosperous tailor and merchant, John Wheatley, acquired her, bought her, as a house servant and named her after the slave ship that brought her to America. The Wheatleys had teenage twins, Mary and Nathaniel, and with their mother's encouragement, actually, Mary began teaching Phillis to read, tutoring her in English, the Bible, and Latin. A reminder here that slaves were typically forbidden to learn to read or write and could be lynched or whipped for disobeying. By 1765, the girl had written her first poem in the formal style of the day, what you heard Katie read for us, religious piety wrapped in heroic couplets, in the words of the noted African-American scholar Henry Louis Gates, Jr. Susanna Wheatley submitted it for publication on her behalf, and this became a very unlikely journey in publishing for the young enslaved poetess. Of course, there were doubts about whether this person of color could have written her verses. 18th century philosophers such as David Hume believed that Black people were a different and inferior species, that they couldn't possibly have the intellect to write poems like that. John Wheatley himself assembled a group of interrogators to authenticate Phillis's capacity as a poet, and this assemblage included such luminaries as John Hancock, Charles Chauncey, and Mather Byles, the grandson of the famous Puritan minister Increase Mather. Nearly all the men present were Harvard graduates and slaveholders. Gates notes, the group she faced was not exactly an association for the advancement of colored people. Now, no transcript exists of Wheatley's trial, but she prevailed and obtained an official letter of support. Even so, no American publisher would touch her work, and so a London publisher was found. Ben Franklin became her friend during her London sojourn, and within a month of the book's publication and Phillis's return to America, she was manumitted, meaning she was freed from enslavement. Yet her freedom meant she became fully responsible for her literary career and her finances, and this is what led to her eventual demise. Ironically, Wheatley's freedom had enslaved her to a life of hardship. In 1778, she married a Black man named John Peters, but he later abandoned her soon after she gave birth to their third child. The first two had died in infancy. This was not unusual at the time. In December of 1784, she died penniless and alone. Her third child died with her. Peters is thought to have sold the only copy of her second manuscript, and poignantly, back in 2000, one of her poems surfaced at Christie's and sold for $70,000. Wheatley has been cited as proof of Africans' innate intellectual equality, and she's also been lifted up as an abolitionist icon. Yet, in the 1960s, criticism of her rose to a fever pitch. One founder of the Black arts movement wrote in 1962 that Wheatley's pleasant imitation of 18th century English poetry are far and finely ludicrous departures from the huge Black voices that splintered Southern nights with their hollers and chants. They claimed she was a race traitor who fit the Uncle Tom syndrome, pious, grateful, and civil. For Wheatley's critics, her origin story as a stolen child, her sacrifices, her courage, her humiliations, her trial, could never be enough. Gates concludes in his essay about Wheatley by defending her, stating that if she stood for anything, it was the creed that culture did or could belong equally to everyone. The only way to know Phillis Wheatley is to let her witness to her own experience and take the stand, which is what we intended with her poems included in the service. Some modern scholars have argued that Phillis Wheatley has been recovered from the whitewashed and this hypercritical version of historical memoirists like Margetta Odell, whose book reads like a sentimental novel. In it, Phillis was a beguiled and vulnerable orphan, not abducted or enslaved, but rather a submissive protege redeemed by Christian kindness and her benevolent mistress, and then a fallen woman seduced by an evil black man. She wrote, the chains which bound her to her master and mistress were the golden links of love and the silken bands of gratitude. In this telling, Phillis's enslavement is, quote, an idyllic period, a rescue. As I've explained, this is far from accurate. It's also racist and condescending. Like Wheatley, African Americans today struggle to witness to their own histories and experiences. Who gets to tell our stories? And explicitly, as we enter Black History Month, who gets to tell the story of African Americans? In an article for Culture magazine, Andrea Collier reflects on the role of storytelling in Black American history and in her own life. She writes, no matter who you are or where you come from, the human spirit wants, no needs to be validated. While story means so much in every culture and ethnicity, I know that Black folk, no matter how they got here, are planted in story, she says, and shared lived experience. It's the way we witness. Storytelling was the first opportunity for Black folk to represent themselves as anything other than property. As John Lewis, the late civil rights champion, has remarked, the movement without storytelling is like a bird without wings. There is no question that storytelling for Black Americans is a way of saying, I am here, I have a history, and I matter. Grasping this cultural truth renders the escalating censorship of authentic Black American history throughout our country all the more dire and nauseating. Writing in the New York Times, the African-American columnist Eugene Robinson reminds us that it's not American history without Black history. And in fact, Black history is white history, isn't it? Real Black history, not the let's not ruffle any white feathers version. Point of fact, Black History Month wasn't even established until 1986. Robinson doesn't pull any punches. He writes, cynical far-right Republican politicians are trying to advance their own careers by whitewashing our nation's past. Florida's bombastic governor, Ron DeSantis, has been in the headlines for pushing the College Board to retreat from a draft curriculum on AP African American Studies because it's too woke, because it includes critical race theory, which basically just points out that race is a construct and needs to be examined. He also, of course, like so many others in government now, want to expunge references to gender and sexual orientation. And you know, he's not alone. In his first official act, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin barred the state's public schools from teaching what he deemed inherently divisive concepts about our history regarding race. Yeah, they're divisive, but they're true. This ramped up big time after the Black Lives Matter movement gained momentum. 15 states now have active educational gag orders that seek to suppress and target marginalized identities with punishments including fines, civil suits, dismissals, and criminal penalties for teaching the truth. From July 2021 to June 2022, PEN America indexed school book bans and listed more than 2,500 instances of banned books involving prominent characters of color, LGBTQ protagonists, or themes and subjects related to race, Black history, or racism. In a great piece of news, I remember a book was banned because the author's last name was gay, His last name was actually Gay, G-A-Y, so his book was targeted even though it was about something like plants. The good news is that most Americans oppose book banning. They support teaching the history of race in America. However, we must respond to the urgency of this moment in 2025. It's becoming a MAGA article of faith that the nation's story must be told without making white people feel bad. And this effort cannot be allowed to grow and succeed. We haven't talked about the eighth principle here, which is a principle that explicitly talks about a congregation committing to anti-racism. And in adopting the eighth principle, many UU congregations have made a pledge to dismantle white supremacy. And I believe we should too here at Eastrose. And I'll begin that discussion. And we can vote about that at our next annual meeting. Much has been written this week about the 1993 novel, The Parable of the Sower, by African-American science fiction writer Octavia Butler. Who's read The Parable of the Sower? Wow, this novel is so prescient, it sends a chill up my spine. She writes that February 1st, 2025, yesterday, would be a time, she wrote this in 1993, that February 1, 2025, would be a time of fires, violence, racism, addiction, climate change, social inequality, and an authoritarian president named President Donner. Wow. Well, that day is yesterday. And Black History Month begins with a version of Butler's dystopian vision. Trump dismantling DEI departments throughout the government and declaring that identity months are dead at the Department of Defense, beginning with Black History Month, Latin Heritage Month, Pride Month, Women's History Month, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, National American Indian Heritage Month. You get the chilling picture. And you know, we really have to figure out how to effectively resist and take action. There is much in American history that causes discomfort, not just stories like Phillis Wheatley's. But it did cause plenty of discomfort to Black people like Phillis Wheatley. Philosopher George Santayana's famous maxim is true. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We make no progress towards a more perfect union if we teach the nation's triumphs without teaching its sins. Reducing African American history to a simple story of 3 chapters, slavery, the Civil War, and Martin Luther King Jr., avoids the discomfort, but also erases the truth. Chattel slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration of people of color, redlining, voter suppression, the shooting of innocent Black citizens. The real history is inherently true, not inherently divisive. Trump's claim that studying the darkest corners of American history should be frowned upon because it, quote, undermines national pride is just a dog whistle that it makes white people feel bad. National pride should be embracing the full story of who we've been and who we can be, and maybe we should feel bad. All of us need all of us to make it. Like Sophia Betancourt advises us in the poem that we heard earlier in the service, we need to gather the bones of Phillis Wheatley and generations of African Americans, not bury them, but rather honor them and their legacies, and not just for one designated month a year, which some people, Black people, joke is, of course, they would make Black History Month the shortest month of the year. But not just for February. May we truly listen to the stories being told and reckon with our own discomfort, because we are all witnesses. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen. Our final hymn is number 1018 in the Teal hymnal, Come and Go With Me. I hope that you will clap along with me. This is a rousing one with a gospel feel. Come and go with me to that land. Please rise as you are able. 10:18 in the teal hymnal.
All right, each week we take an offering to support this church and to share with the community nonprofit. Through August, half of our offering will go to NAYA, Native American Youth and Family Center, which serves Native Americans from across the Portland metropolitan area. Their aim is to enhance the diverse strengths of youth and families in partnership with the community through cultural identity and education. They promote healthy living through positive alternatives to high-risk behaviors and promote the values of sobriety, family stability, culture, active lifestyles, and education. Our congregation is involved in several projects with NAYA, and we encourage you to check Petals or contact Karen Pyle, who is a greeter today, so she's in the narthex, for ways to join this partnership. If you're attending online, you may donate by visiting our website and clicking the donate button, or you may scan the QR code on the screen. If you're here for the first time, we invite you to let the basket pass and truly be our guests. The gifts of the congregation will now be most gratefully received. And sing our song of gratitude, number 1010, in the Teal Hymnal. It will also be on the screen. We give thanks.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
I shall take my voice wherever there are those who want to hear the melody of freedom or the words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of despair and fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be attained. The song of freedom must prevail. All right, we have a few announcements. The first is that Deanna and Ryan Hall had a baby girl at 1:52 yesterday morning. Welcome, Charlotte. She was 7 pounds, 14 ounces, and 20.5 inches. And I saw her picture. She's very cute. RE volunteers are needed the last Sunday in February and the first Sunday in March. Please talk to Tara if you are interested in spending time with our wonderful kids. She's the one who is reading the story, so Tara, yeah. All right, so another announcement about friendship dinners, which is something we do here. There are dinners on February 22nd. The deadline to sign up is Sunday, next Sunday after church. And there are sign-up sheets out in the narthex. And Linda, who organizes this, I think is also out there. No one's waving at me, but I think, okay, she's in the back. But anyway, so she has sheets and you can sign up. They're fun. All right, then there's also there's a potluck right after this, so you're welcome to go back, and don't worry if you didn't bring anything, there's usually way too much food anyway. There's various announcements on Petals, including brown bag lunch with Reverend Robin on Tuesdays. There's some hiking coming up on Saturday the 8th, etc. There's on the Sunday, the 15th of February, we're having Palentine's Day, Saturday, 2/15, Palentine's all ages potluck bingo night.
Right, if you came to the first bingo night, it was really fun. I just have a couple more.
Okay, let me move.
And then the benediction. So also February 6th, free day at Portland Art Museum. You can talk to Ruth about that. The Palentine Bingo Night is an all-family, all-age event. And next week, we will have spiritual conversations. And today we have a potluck. In addition to just it being a regular potluck, it's our chance to say goodbye to Sherry. She's leaving this week for Portugal. We have a big chocolate cake and lots of yummy food and a card. It's over on the credenza in the Thatcher room. I hope you'll write something on it for Sherry. And with that, please join me in the unison benediction. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. I look forward to getting to know you in the Thatcher Room. If you're new today, please think about signing up for our newsletter. All of these things are in it, and filling out a visitor form so we can get to know you better. Go in peace.